Okay, I am choosing to do tonight's homework video on a whiteboard because there is not enough space on the workbook page to show all of the steps. If you need a copy of the workbook page, there is one uploaded on Jupyter. Problem 1, the square root of 2. You break that down into the square root of 1 and the square root of 4, which is 1 and 2. The square root of 2 is between 1 and 2. Number 2, the square root of 3. Break it down into the square root of 1 and the square root of 4, which is 1 and 2. Number 3, the square root of 7. Break it down into the square root of 4 and the square root of 9, which is 2 and 3. Square root of 14, break it down into the square root of 9 and the square root of 16, which is 3 and 4. Square root of 55, break it down into the square root of 49 and 64, which is 7 and 8. Square root of 39, we'll break down into the square root of 36 and 49, which is 6 and 7. Square root of 99, you break that down into 81 and 100, which is 9 and 10. Square root of 39, you break that down into 36 and 49, which is 6 and 7. And the last one in that section, the square root of 24, you break that down into 16 and 25, which is 4 and 5. Now, for part 2, numbers 10 through 18, we're going to use our answers in order to answer the next section. So, for the square root of 2, 2 is closer to 1, meaning for number 10, the square root of 2 is 1. Number 11, the square root of 3. 3 is closer to 4, so the answer is going to be 2. Number 12, the square root of 7 is closer to 9, which is 3. Number 13, the square root of 14 is closer to 16, which is 4. Number 14, the square root of 55 is closer to 49, which is 7. Number 15, the square root of 39 is closer to 36, which is 6. 1699 is closer to 100, which is 10. The square root of 39 is closer to 36, which is 6. And the square root of 24 is closer to 25, which is 5. The numbers I circled in blue are the answers for 10 through 18. I'm now going to erase all of this and start fresh for numbers 19 through 27. So, for number 19, the square root of 2, we already did the first part and broke it down into the square root of 1 and the square root of 4, which is 1 and 2. Then I set up my fraction. 2 minus 1 is 1, over 4 minus 1, which is 3. My fraction is 1/3. My answer is 1. My answer is 1 and 1/3. But we have to make a decimal, so I'm going to do 3 into 1. 3 cannot go into 1, so I add a decimal and a 0. 3 can go into 10 3 times. I get 9, subtract, and I get 1. Add a 0, bring it down. 3 can go into 10 3 times. I get 9, subtract, and I get 1. Add a 0, bring it down. 3 can go into 10 3 times. I get 9, subtract, and I get 1. My answer is 1.333. But if we read the instructions, it says for number 19, approximate to the nearest tenth, meaning I need one decimal place. So number 19, the answer is 1.3. For number 25, it says round to the nearest hundredth, so the answer is 1.33. Number 20, the square root of 3, we've already broken down into the square root of 1 and the square root of 4, which is 1 and 2. I'm going to make my fraction 3 minus 1, which is 2, and 4 minus 1, which is 3. My answer is 1 and 2/3. But I need a decimal, so I'm going to set it up. 3 can't go into 2, so I add a decimal and a 0. 3 can go into 26 times. I get 18, subtraction, I get 2. Add a 0 and bring it down. 3 can go into 26 times. 18, subtract, and I get 2. Add a 0, bring it down. 3 can go into 26 times. 18, subtract, I get 2. My answer is 1.666. However, for number 20, it says to round to the nearest tenth. So I take that decimal place and I round up to 1.7. Number 20 is 1.7. For number 26, I need to round to the nearest hundredth, so I look at my third decimal place and round up and get 1.67. Number 21. The square root of 7, I break down into the square root of 4 and the square root of 9, which is 2 and 3. I write my fraction, 7 minus 4, which is 3, 9 minus 4, which is 5. My answer is 2 and 3/5, but I need a decimal. So 5 can't go into 3, so I add a decimal and a 0. 5 can go into 36 times, subtraction, I get 0. Add a 0, bring it down. 5 can go into 0 0 times. Add a 0, bring it down. 5 can go into 0 0 times. My answer is 2.600. For number 21, the answer says round to the nearest tenth, so I need one decimal place, 2.6. But for number 27, I need to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places, so 2.60. Number 22. The square root of 14, I break it down into the square root of 9 and the square root of 16, which is 3 and 4. I set up my fraction, 14 minus 9, which is 5, and 16 minus 9, which is 7. My answer is 3 and 5/7, but I need a fraction. 7 can't go into 5, so I add a decimal and a 0. 7 can go into 50 7 times, which is 49, subtract and I get 1, add a 0, bring it down. 7 can go into 10 one time, I get 7, subtract and I get 3. Add a 0, bring it down. 7 can go into 34 times, I get 28, subtract and I get 2. My answer is 3.714. But for number 22, it says round to the nearest tenth, so my answer is 3.7. Number 23, the square root of 55. I can break that down into the square root of 49 and the square root of 64, which is 7 and 8. I set up my fraction, 55 minus 49, which is 6, over 64 minus 49, which is 15. My answer is 7 and 6 over 15. But I need a decimal, so I want to do 15 into 6. 15 can't go into 6, so I add a decimal and a 0. 15 can go into 6 4 times. Subtract and I get 0. Add a 0, bring it down. 15 can go into 0 0 times. Add a 0, bring it down. 15 can go into 0 0 times. My answer is 7.400. But for number 23, it says round to the nearest tenth, so that's one decimal place, so 7.4. And the last problem, the square root of 39, I'm going to break down into the square root of 36 and the square root of 49, which is 6 and 7. Set up my fraction, 39 minus 36, which is 3, 49 minus 36, which is 13. My answer is 6 and 3 over 13, but we need a decimal. 13 can't go into 3, so I add a decimal and a 0. 13 can go into 32 times, which gives me 26. Subtraction, I get 4. Add a 0 and bring it down. 13 can go into 43 times, which gives me 39. Subtract and I get 1. Add a 0, bring it down. 13 can't go into 10, so that's going to be a 0. My answer is 6.230, but I need one decimal place, so for number 24, the answer is 6.2.